Welcome to Kentucky Horsepower, the official podcast of the Kentucky Automobile Dealers Association.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our latest edition of Kentucky Horsepower Podcast. I'm Sarah Bishop, the Vice President of Legislative Affairs here at KADA, and I'm really excited to tell you all about our legal workshop. It's coming up on May 8th. It's going to be in person this year, which will be, I think, a positive change from the last few that we have done online, because as exciting as hearing about legal topics is online, it will be even more fun in person. So we're doing this at the Frankfort Country Club here in Frankfort. It's going to be 10 to, I believe, 2. So we'll feed you lunch. We'll give you all the latest legal topics, and you can register online at our website, kyada.com. I'm excited today to have two folks who are going to be presenting at that legal workshop. Join me, Joel Nagle from Stoll, Keenon, Ogden in Indianapolis. Hi, Joel.
Hey, Sarah, how are you?
Good. And Megan Ucelis. Megan, did I say that right?
You did.
She's from Phillips in Louisville, right?
Yes.
So how are things in Louisville as we prep for the Derby? Pretty exciting?
Very exciting all the time. Glad the flooding's gone and we're ready for Derby, right?
Yes, it's about time. We deserve some good, nice Derby weather too. All right, so 3 lawyers on our podcast today, so you know it's going to be riveting. There's a few things kind of going on in the legal world that we want to tell you about that's relevant for car dealers. So think of this, guys, as a sneak preview of what you're going to see at our legal workshop on May 8th. Megan, you work primarily, would you say, in employment law?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been with Fisher Phillips?
11 years.
Oh, nice. And Joel, you do just about what? Everything a car dealer could need? What all would you say you do?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. Kind of like a in-house counsel, but actually outside for car dealers.
You just don't actually have to keep them in your house.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. You don't want to be in my house anyway, probably. But yeah, so yeah, all types of different work for car dealers and also just business litigation to general business services.
All right. So let's start with, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but there have been some tariffs that affect the automotive industry. It hasn't been talked about much. I'm kidding, of course. Do you think that, this is for Joel mostly, but if you have thoughts on it, Megan, please chime in. Do you think that all that is going on in the tariff world, and you don't have to opine on the tariffs themselves, do you think that has kind of taken some of the oxygen out of the room from OEMs as far as some of the direct sale models that we have been advocating against?
Well, I would say from what I've seen, no, not at all.
Okay.
Actually. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe somewhere down the line it might, but at least for the time being, I've been doing this for quite a while, and I don't know if I've seen this much direct sales activity from not just manufacturers, but companies like, Amazon and others. They've really been active throughout the U.S. on trying to get direct sales. So maybe the tariffs, I could see maybe because of some uncertainty, maybe it pausing it somewhat. But you've got Scout, Slate, Lucid, Rivian. There's just a bunch of these different manufacturers all over the U.S. that really seem intent on disrupting the model, going direct to consumer.
Well, that is a dark attitude, Joel.
Yeah, sorry guys.
Especially Texas just got a big win against Lucid. What do you think about that? Is that going to help?
They did. Yeah, Texas did get a big win in the Lucid case. Now, it's going to help somewhat because the Texas case did uphold their their manufacturer direct sales prohibition. So that's good. It gives it precedent, even though it's just in Texas. It gives other states at least, a foot to stand on as far as the model, the concept of banning the direct sales from the manufacturer. The Lucid case, though, there's some parts about the Lucid case that will be different in other states.
Sure.
Argued. For instance, I think Illinois recently, they had the Rivian case there where Rivian is going to be able to sell directly. So Texas case, great. And if I should just give, a backdrop on the Texas case real fast. Lucid, EV, manufacturer. A lot of these direct sales are really generated mostly through these EV manufacturers. So in that case, Lucid said, hey, we want to sell direct to customers. Dealership model's not working. People don't like the dealership model. We're, this innovative EV company. We need to go direct to consumer. One of the main arguments that the dealers made was like, look, for one, Lucid can already sell to consumers if it's online or whatever. Two, there's a law that says that they can't, and nobody else can in the state, including Tesla. And so the court did agree with the dealers and said, yeah, there's a law on the books. Couldn't be clearer that if you're a manufacturer, you can't sell directly. There were no other manufacturers selling directly. So the court found that law was constitutional and upheld it. So that's a good thing, but that's Texas state law. Could be different, will be different elsewhere when these cases get brought.
Quite the ray of sunshine, Joel. We were just trying to find.
If you're looking for sunshine, a lawyer podcast is probably not the place to find it.
All of our dealers think that I am a harbinger of doom every time I speak, but I'm trying to be positive here.
Now, other than that, everything's great.
Yeah. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to turn to Megan. Maybe she'll give us some good news. What is the status? And Megan, I get this question really less from dealers and more from just like my friends around. What is the status of the non-compete ban? And because my answer to them is always, it's complicated. So what is the legal status of the non-compete ban?
So the legal status right now is, so what we're talking about here is the total ban FTC tried to do starting under the Biden administration. So what that has been done with right now is it's actually been shut down by a court, and it is in the appeal process. But now that we have a new administration with Trump and a new chairman of the FTC, it's actually in abeyance right now. So the FTC did ask for the court where it was being appealed to hold it in abeyance for 120 days. And that was last month that they did that. What I suspect is the FTC is going to change course a little bit. Now,
seems likely.
Yeah, they have identified a task force that's like looking at initiatives. But one of the things is still non-competes, but I do not think it is going to be a complete ban. I do think that that's going to change. So right now what you're looking at is your state law. So you have to follow whatever your state says about non-competes, non-solicitation and other restrictive covenant things. But it's to be determined federally from the FTC what they're going to do. But I do think they're going to walk back that total ban, and we're going to see, some non-competes in certain forms being legal.
And there haven't been major changes in Kentucky law, right? As it relates to non-competes?
As it relates to non-competes, not right now.
So right now I'm saying when people ask like, nah, it's weird because they're legal, but they're not favored. Like people look for a reason to strike them down. What would you say to a dealer who asked you what they should do on a non-compete without, this is not giving legal advice, everybody. She is not. Yes. You are not her client. She is not giving you legal advice, nor am I, nor is Joel.
That's our disclaimer. So I do think what you should be doing is you should be narrowly tailoring when you want to use them and for which employees. So we're not going to use these for every single employee that comes through the door. We really want to focus on what employees are we worried about, who can really be a threat if they leave and they're going to take our business or do something like that. And I will say that like non-solicitation, whether it's customers, contractors, other employees, that's usually across the board. We can do that, and we can use confidentiality agreements and things like that. But your non-competes where you want to be restrictive, you've got to be really focused on what employees you're using that for. It's not just going to be any person walking through the door, working in, a low wage.
Your cashier does not need a non-compete clause.
Exactly. So yeah, we want to save those for the employees that we really care about. And that's the way that we're going to continue to be able to use those, because if we're using them for the employees that really need, that protection, they're going to be more likely to be enforced. But when we keep using them for lower level employees that don't really need it, courts and, the FTC and things, they are going to start saying, you know what, maybe we should just ban this entirely because it's being overly used by employers.
Excellent. Do you see any other major changes in the regulatory world with kind of the Trump administration coming in? I feel like it has been very much like a lot's going to change, and now we're kind of waiting for that to all be implemented. So, what other changes have you actually seen, or are you anticipating?
Yeah, so there's a wide range of things going on. Obviously, I'm dealing with, the employment side of it. So what we did see when Trump first came is all these executive orders. I think we all heard about those. It was January and it was like bam, 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 one after the other. So I think where we're kind of focusing on, especially as an employment lawyer, are one, DEI initiatives and things like that. So we've got an executive order that is focused on our private companies, not just federal contractors. And we're seeing some changes with EEOC guidance that was previously put out, and now what the Trump administration is saying. So the Trump administration has said, you can't have these illegal DEI programs. Don't define illegal. So we're not quite sure.
That makes things tricky.
Yes.
A lawyer's dream, though.
Exactly. But so the focus there, and what I'm telling my clients to do, is just remember to be inclusive. It's still okay to have DEI programs, initiatives, groups at work and things like that, but it has to be all inclusive. So whereas maybe you used to have a training or a mentorship program for a certain class of employees or something like that, we've got to open that up to everyone. So the Trump administration said there is no reverse discrimination anymore. It's not, Title VII and our discrimination laws, they don't just apply to minority groups. Anyone can bring a discrimination case. So it's really important to be all inclusive and that everything's kind of available to all employees.
So avoiding DEI means you have to be inclusive. There's some irony there. But I see what you're saying. And I mean, I think it makes sense under the executive order. All right, Joel, here's your next chance to bring us down.
Yeah.
Talk to us. Well, you talked about Amazon, and I think one of the things that had given dealers some comfort in the Amazon world was, and obviously they were limited to Hyundai at the time, but what they were doing was effectively taking orders for participating dealers. Now, have you heard talk about that expanding? I have heard scuttlebutt. I don't know how accurate or inaccurate. What are your thoughts on the latest Amazon situation?
Yeah, I have heard. I actually do have a client that was, when it was first rolled out, looked at the agreement, read the agreement, and like you said, it's using Amazon as a platform. Dealers still involved. The concern is, if the more they roll it out, how much are they going to try to curb the dealer's ability then to, other than just acting kind of as an intermediary. So yeah, I do think it will try to be expanding. Interestingly, actually just here, this is kind of new, kind of breaking news up here in Indianapolis.
Breaking.
Yeah, there's an EV company called Slate that came to Indiana. They wanted to come to Indiana about, I would say, like winter of last year. And we looked into Slate, we just could not find anything about them. We looked online, we did a little sleuthing. There was no information at all. Like, who are these guys? Where are they from? What are they, what are they trying to, it just kind of came out of thin air, right? Which is, as a car manufacturer, very hard to do because, it's not easy to just
Absolutely.
yeah, right. So usually you hear about manufacturer, like for instance, Scout. Okay, that's Volkswagen. That's
Sure.
the backing of a massive multinational manufacturer. So anyway, we're looking at, we're like, we can't even find names of these guys. We have no clue where they're coming from. So one thing led to another, and they'd actually promised or discussed with one of our legislators here about building a pretty large manufacturing facility up north. And so our General Assembly, a few of them were like, hey, this is great, man. We've got
Right.
this is going to be a big deal. And of course they want to sell directly to customers. And we later found out that actually it was all Jeff Bezos money. So that's the link with Amazon.
Okay.
But yeah, he was basically funding this Slate as a manufacturer that would sell direct to customers. And they were trying to work through a bill through our General Assembly to get them able to do that. So thankfully, I think it was just yesterday, actually, we got the the news that they weren't going to pass law or amend the law or to allow the direct sales through Slate. But that to me makes me think if Bezos is already has the Amazon angle, now it looks like he's also doing the Slate angle of a manufacturer going direct to
Right.
customer, that it's something that he's definitely interested in expanding. So I don't know. Yeah, so that was a really interesting development here. I don't know why they picked Indiana. I'm not sure. I don't know if there are other states too, but it seemed like we were kind of their test case. But you know,
Good job on taking care of it in the test case. Fingers
well,
crossed.
yeah,
For
it was
the future.
our dealer association president Marty Murphy out to you, but no credit to me. I couldn't even find out who owned the thing. So
Mhm.
yeah, but Marty figured it out along with some folks who work with our association. But yeah, so I mean that's the type of thing where this time last year I'd never heard Slate, right? I mean,
Right.
I've heard of Slate. So it seems like these things are coming out of the woodwork in a way. So that's a long answer to say, yeah, I think they'll probably keep trying to expand in some capacity in the foreseeable future.
All right. Good job, Marty, and the Indiana team there. Okay. It is nearly summer. So that means I'm going to start getting questions from our dealers about employing their children, grandchildren, nephews, cousins, neighbors, about bringing kids off for the summer into the store. And with a business like car dealerships, it's so family oriented that really does happen. You know, how many of our dealers are saying, yeah, I started as working on the lot in my teens, but we have to be really careful, obviously, about that. Megan, talk to us about employing minors.
So a pretty nuanced area of law. So I want to, give the general disclaimer that I am just talking about, some of the rules here. You certainly need to be aware of all of the rules, but we're going to be looking specifically at Kentucky and federal law here because both have requirements on employing minors. There are some exemptions, and so there are possible exemptions when you are employing actually minors by parents and things like that, because, we do have these family dealerships. So sometimes you can get away with employing your own children as long as they're not working in like a manufacturing or some sort of hazardous occupation. But when we're talking about minors for definition purposes here, we're talking about employees that are between 14 to 18 years of age. And there's different requirements based on the age. So for 14 to 15-year-olds, let's keep in mind, they can't operate motor vehicles.
Under no circumstances should you put these people behind the wheel of a car.
And then even when we're talking about our 16 and 17-year-olds, there are some restrictions there too, both under federal and Kentucky law. So there are certain restrictions about them driving vehicles as part of their job duties. So you do need to take a look at that if that is what you are wanting them to do.
And it also just might not be wise.
Exactly. So otherwise, focusing on the summertime, so I'm looking specifically at when school's not in session, because there are different requirements when school's in session. But for 14 and 15-year-olds, they can't work more than 8 hours a day. And they can't work more than 40 hours a week when school's not in session. They also can't work earlier than 7 a.m. or later than 7 p.m. unless it is between June 1st and Labor Day. And then they can work until 9 p.m. I do want to make one note of caution. While Kentucky doesn't have a statewide curfew, some local, counties, cities might. So you do want to keep that in mind as well. The restrictions for our 16 and 17-year-olds are a lot less restrictive. So they basically have no restriction on maximum hours when school's not in session. And then their earliest is 6 a.m. And then the latest would be 1 a.m. preceding a non-school day. But again, keep in mind those curfews. I don't know that we have one specifically right now for Louisville, but I imagine maybe some of our smaller cities and counties could have one, or it could change from time to time, maybe depending on what's going on.
I mean, the bottom line is, if it's not your child, there's a lot to think about. So make sure you're really invested in wanting to hire this person before you commit to doing it, I think is the takeaway there.
And there's a lot of record keeping requirements for our minors. You have to have that proof of their age, the that people can come in and check those documents. I know sometimes we don't like to keep documents. So that needs to be there, because yeah, you can really be on the hook, and the penalties can add up quickly if you don't have that documentation. So keep that in mind before hiring a minor.
All right. Thank you all both for being here. Before I let you go, and before I plug the legal workshop again, tell us some of the things you're going to be talking about on May 8th.
Yeah, so I am going to be specifically dealing with an auto dealer's guide to our FLSA exemptions. So we're really going to walk through basically every exemption that's commonly used by dealerships to know what those requirements are, and if you're properly exempting someone from minimum wage or overtime requirements. And then we're going to talk about certain record keeping requirements and what you have to do to make sure that you are, staying compliant so you can use those exemptions.
And guys, there have been some real changes in FLSA and minimum wage and overtime law in the last year or two. So if you haven't gotten a primer on that yet, this is a really, really good opportunity to learn about those. All right, Joel, what are you going to tell us about?
Well, do some direct sales, like we talked about a little bit today. Maybe some advertising law.
Oh, that's a good one.
Maybe some long arm jurisdiction of getting brought into court in other states. But I'll open it up to the people too. If anybody has, ideas or requests or things you wanna hear, let me know about it. And
He's taking requests, guys.
I
Reach
am,
out to
I
me
am,
or
yeah.
to Joel.
I'm always open for requests. So
All right, how can people reach out to you guys? Give us email addresses.
You can email me. It is my name somewhat. So it's M for Megan, Usellis, USELLIS @FisherPhillips.com. Fisher is FISHER.
mine is joel.nagle, just like on the screen here, and that's at skofirm.com.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Just another reminder and pitch, legal workshop in person, May 8th, here in Frankfort at the Frankfort Country Club. You can register online at our website, kyada.com. And that's it. Thank you, everybody.